Hey, what's up guys? Today, I'll show you a horror thriller film, Vilt, aka Cold Prey, Part 2. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins with a deserted sled near a crevasse. In a hospital, Dr. Camilla is checking up on an old woman who has mild hypothermia and frostbite. At the reception desk, Dr. Herman is playing with a Rubik's Cube. He asks about the patient's condition, and a nurse is putting up balloons on the ceiling because their hospital is closing. They hear a car park outside, and before Dr. Camilla goes out, Dr. Herman asks her if she wants a box full of junk. She declines and hurries to the car outside. Her boyfriend is inside. They share a kiss, but get interrupted by his walkie-talkie. He's being summoned to investigate an abandoned car. After responding to his colleagues, he asks her about the job offer she received. She tells him that she accepted it, and he looks disappointed. Before she could talk more, he decides to leave for the investigation. When he gets to the abandoned car, he wipes the snow off the windows and sees that it's empty. He tells his colleagues that it appears they've been gone for days. After reporting the whole situation, he throws a snowball and drives back. While driving, he receives a text message and almost hits a person in the middle of the road. When the car stops, he looks at the person, who was the woman named Janik. She turns back to look at him and collapses to the ground. He rushes to save her. Back at the hospital, a child named Gamer Boy is playing video games. Dr. Herman asks him about his condition, and Gamer Boy responds politely. Dr. Herman then sits at a table with Dr. Camilla and asks her about her boyfriend. Dr. Camilla receives a call from her boyfriend about Janik and her condition. He mentions the blood on her body, and Janik clarifies that it's not her blood. He glances at the pickaxe on the backseat. During the drive to the hospital, Janik recalls the terrible experiences that she endured. Several police officers came to the hospital to investigate the situation. Janik tells the story of how she and her friends found an abandoned hotel and how they got murdered. She tells him about a killer who took the lives of her friends. When they ask her about the pickaxe, she answers that it's for self-defense. In the hallway, the police chief asks Dr. Herman about Janik's mental condition. Then they start their investigation. They leave one officer with Blondie to stay at the hospital. Dr. Camilla wonders about Janik's story. Dr. Herman convinces her to talk to Janik, something that she is hesitant about. Dr. Camilla then brings Janik some soup, but it still seems as if Janik is still in shock. In the hallway, there is a beeping coming from another room, and the nurse comes to attend to the patient. Blondie greets her. At the crevasse, one policeman is taking photos of the bodies. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Gamer Boy enters Janik's room and asks about her health. They share a conversation, but then Janik lays her head back on the pillow. Gamer Boy invites her to play, but she refuses and asks him to play with her tomorrow instead. At the crime scene, they load the bodies onto the vehicle. Two of the policemen are left behind to seal the crime area and to check the abandoned hotel. Police chief reports that they already found the bodies and also the killer. The bodies arrive at the hospital, and they document the bodies by taking their photos. Police chief notices a mark on the killer's eye, and Dr. Herman notes that it looks like a birthmark. Upon hearing this, police chief leaves the hospital. Dr. Herman urges Dr. Camilla to tell Janik that her friends' bodies have arrived. Dr. Herman also leaves the nurse in charge of the bodies. At the police station, police chief searches for a folder about a missing boy. The boy has the same eye birthmark as the killer. In the morgue, the nurse is still taking off the clothes from the bodies. She turns and sees that the door is slightly open. Blondie scares her a bit, coming out from behind a wall column. He starts a conversation with her and makes up an excuse for being there. When Dr. Camilla takes away the empty bowl from Janik's room, Janik opens her eyes and talks to her. Dr. Camilla tells her about her friends' bodies and asks her if she wants to see them. The nurse jumps in surprise when Dr. Camilla arrives. Janik is also there. Dr. Camilla unzips the body bags to reveal their faces, and Janik touches them and starts crying. She sees the killer's body bag. She starts punching his body while crying. Dr. Camilla restrains her while she cries. The policemen find the abandoned hotel and look around it. They notice the blood on the floor, and when they are about to go out, a strong wind shuts the front door. Using their walkie-talkie, police chief asks them to go back to the crevasse. At the police station, police chief looks at the bulletin board, full of news headlines of people disappearing in the mountains. When Janik gets back to her room, Dr. Herman speaks with Dr. Camilla. He scolds her for taking Janik to the morgue and gives sleeping drugs to Janik. At the crevasse, one policeman searches for anything suspicious. The other asks if he found anything, and he sees a frozen hand. He discovers a pile of frozen bodies as he flashes the light in front of him. When the nurse starts undressing killer, she wrinkles her nose at the stench of the body. Suddenly, his body starts to spasm, and she leaves the room to call the doctors. Janek wakes up and sees them reviving him, and she yells at them to stop. She's held back by Blondie, and she hits his nose. He still restrains her. Eventually, they drug Janek and take her back to her bed. Blondie takes tissues from the cabinet. The doctors and the nurse are watching over the killer, who seems to be dead again. Blondie cuffs the killer's hand to the bed and asks for help for his bloody nose. While the nurse is tending to his bloody nose, they tease and flirt with each other. When she leaves, the killer wakes up behind Blondie. When Blondie turns, the killer slashes his throat. He falls to the ground, bleeding, and dies. In the locker room, the nurse undresses. She takes a shower and blow-dries her hair. After getting dressed, she goes out into the hallway. It's dark, so she approaches the glowing red switch and turns on the light. When she does, the killer is behind her and hits her head with a fire extinguisher. She wakes up with a bloody head and the killer standing in front of her. She screams, but he kills her this time. On the other side, Dr. Herman and Dr. Camilla laugh while talking, and he places his hand on hers. Suddenly, the lights go out and they turn around. The emergency lights go on. At the police station, police chief watches the tape about the missing boy. He notices that the missing boy's parents talk about the boy playing outside. Then he looks at news headlines of disturbing events that happened near the hotel and the fire incident that occurred, so he calls the survivor from the fire. Back at the hospital, Dr. Herman goes to check on the generator while Dr. Camilla checks on the patients. Janek wakes up. She hears someone banging on a door. She slowly gets up and walks out into the hallway. She slowly walks towards the double doors and sees the bloody hand slamming on the glass. Despite this, she still approaches the door and opens it. No one's on the other side. When she closes and turns back, the killer is in front of her and kills her. But this is just a dream. Janek wakes up for real and sees that her body is tied to the bed. Dr. Herman is on his way to the generator, and Dr. Camilla is walking in the hallways. She sees the nurse's belongings on the floor and goes into the locker room. It's dark inside, and she trips on something and falls to the floor. In the basement, Dr. Herman notices the wires are cut. He turns on the generator. When he does, Dr. Camilla sees the bloody fire extinguisher on the floor. She turns her head to the shower room and runs when she sees the nurse's dead body. Dr. Herman is still checking on the generator. When he turns around, the killer is there. Dr. Herman yells at him and throws a wrench at him. He fumbles to open a door. He runs out up the stairs, but he slips. The killer grabs his head and breaks his neck backward. Upstairs, Dr. Camilla goes to the reception desk to make a call, but the phone's not working. The killer enters, and she hides underneath the desk. He approaches a box near her hiding spot and picks up a pickaxe. Police chief is at a dining establishment talking to the fire survivor. He learns that during that fire incident, the missing boy's family disappeared and the boy was stillborn, but somehow his heart started beating after a few hours. At the hospital, Janek is still tied to the bed. Gamer Boy enters her room and she asks him to help her. Gamer Boy hesitates but eventually cuts her free from the bed. They both quietly leave the room. They enter the morgue and she sees the killer's body is gone and there's blood on the floor. She sees the killer heading their way and they hide from him. When he disappears, he instructs Gamer Boy to hide in a cabinet. When she leaves, the light from Gamer Boy's video games is visible through the holes on the door. When Janek enters another room, she breaks down. She looks through the shelves for a drug and fills a syringe with it. Dr. Camilla runs to go find her cell phone and calls her boyfriend. But he's unable to hear her calls because he left his phone inside the car. She leaves him a message about their situation. She calls an emergency number, but she hears a noise and enters another room. Janek attacks her, mistaking her for the killer. But after the mistake, she slowly pulls out the needle from Dr. Camilla's neck. Meanwhile, Gamer Boy hears a sound and peeks through the cabinet door. Before leaving the room, Dr. Camilla and Janek form their strategy. Dr. Camilla splits up with her to look for Dr. Herman. Janek runs back to the cabinet, but Gamer Boy is no longer there. Dr. Camilla is in the basement and sees the killer walking down the hallway. He enters the morgue, and she hides by holding herself up underneath the bed. The killer is gathering his belongings. She struggles to keep herself up and falls to the ground. The killer almost kills her, but Janek pushes a bed towards him. When they run out, they spot Gamer Boy, lock the door, and run out of the hospital. When they step outside, the police are there. Janek grabs a shotgun, but they restrain her and lock her inside a car. She watches Gamer Boy reunite with his mother, and he waves at her. Dr. Camilla waves goodbye to Gamer Boy and tries to stop her boyfriend from going to the hospital, but he assures her that he'll be fine. She enters the car with Janek. Police chief and the two enter the hospital and carefully search the rooms. They go down into the basement, where they lock the killer. They push the door, and it falls to the ground. They don't find him, so they decide to pull out and wait for reinforcements. Before making their way up, they sense that there's someone upstairs. They cautiously make their way up. They see Blondie's body in the middle of the hallway, and the policeman approaches it. He closes Blondie's eyes. Suddenly, a cord snares his leg and pulls him. He screams for his colleagues and tries to use his gun to prevent himself from going into a room. The door frame breaks, and the door closes. Police chief shoots the door open, but when he gets inside the room, the policeman is already dead. He yells to warn Camilla's boyfriend, but it's already too late. The killer attacks police chief, while Janik and the other two see the gunfire through the windows. Inside, the boyfriend is still alive. He watches the old lady make her way back to her room. Outside, they finally decide to go to the hospital, but then, the killer axes the police officer's head through the window. Chaos erupts when killer starts axing the care roof. Janik yells at Dr. Camilla to get the gun, but she gets cut by the axe. Dr. Camilla almost reaches for the gun, but killer pulls her out the window. Janik breaks the window and almost sees Dr. Camilla get axed, but the boyfriend shoots the killer before collapsing to the ground. Janik grabs the gun inside the car and checks on the killer's body. Then she goes to Dr. Camilla to comfort her. When she looks back, the killer's body is gone. She curses and yells, then begins to follow the trail of blood on the snow. It led to the woods in the direction of the abandoned hotel. Janik gets coats and a shotgun, then drives to the abandoned hotel. When she gets there, she enters it and puts on a hoodie that she found on a chair. She signs her friends' names in the guest book, bars the door, and sits on a chair, waiting for the killer to come. The next day, she wakes up and sees the trail of snow around her. The killer is right behind her. She turns around to shoot him, but he grabs the shotgun and she shoots the roof instead. He throws her down and drops the shotgun on the floor. While Janik is crawling, he kicks her, giving her a large splinter. Janik tries to grab the gun, but she is hit again, this time crashing through the glass. She grabs her knife, but he grabs her hand and pulls her up, then throws her back down to the ground. She braces herself for her death. Blood splatters on her face, but she's still alive. She sees two detached fingers on the floor. Dr. Camilla is behind the killer, and she has shot him. He turns to Dr. Camilla and hits her. The gun flies off, but she grabs it. The killer pushes her outside. Her eyes are about to be gouged out, but Janik throws the pickaxe. It sinks in the killer's back, killing him. He falls to the ground and bleeds. Janik and Dr. Camilla look at each other. Then the movie ends with Janik grabbing the shotgun and shooting the killer to make sure he's dead meat. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.